This is part 2 of episode 2 of Superweapons of Superpowers, focusing on the United States. In the first part, we showed American projects that dominate the world. Also, where the United States of America surprisingly falls behind. Now comes the downside, a billion-dollar fiasco of overpriced experiments and secret projects. These are rarely discussed. And we'll start with the most serious warning, that even America is not invincible. The Zumwalt-Class destroyer. A ship meant to be revolutionary ended in disgrace. You're watching Beyond Borders. Let's start. A futuristic mistake and an opportunity. This is the ship that was supposed to be the future of the United States Navy. Invisible to radar, extremely quiet. With a revolutionary hull shape and a whole new generation of weapons, United States ship Zumwalt was supposed to be the first of more than 30 ships that would change the game at sea. But reality was very different. Zumwalt looks like it's from sci-fi. It uses stealth technology. The angular hull reflects radar waves in such a way that it appears as a small fishing boat on the screen. It has huge electrical power, initially intended for a railgun. The electromagnetic cannon of the future. Inside the ship, there is space for hundreds of smart missiles, and its automated system allows it to operate with a much smaller crew than traditional destroyers. On paper, it's a perfect machine. And that's not all. Zumwalt was supposed to be part of a new generation of ships that quietly approach enemy coastal defenses and destroy their radars, command centers, and artillery batteries before they're even noticed. His role was clear: to open the way for the other forces that would follow. That was the vision. But this vision faced several tough obstacles. The biggest problem was that the ship's main weapon, the advanced gun system, never got up and running. Ammunition expected to cost tens of thousands ended up at over $800,000, each leading to the project's cancellation. So the ship was left without its primary artillery for which it was designed, and that made the entire Zumwalt concept almost unusable. Technical malfunctions, high costs, and political pressure were added to that. Ultimately, the Navy built just 3 units, not the planned 32. That's a huge change. From a futuristic fleet, only a luxurious trio of experimental ships remained. Critics call them the most expensive prototypes in the history of the United States Navy. But the story doesn't end here. In recent years, a completely new role has emerged for these ships. The United States of America plans to turn the Zumwalts into carriers of the latest long-range hypersonic missiles. Thanks to their enormous electric power, quiet operation, and stealth profile, they could become a platform that silently approaches enemy shores and launches a salvo of extremely fast missiles. This is a role where the Zumwalt can finally show why it was designed so radically. So what is the Zumwalt? A technological experiment that ended painfully. Yes, an expensive project that failed its original mission. Also yes. But at the same time, a ship that can get a second life in a completely different type of war than it was designed for. And that's exactly what makes this chapter a strong contrast to what we'll see next. Because right after the futuristic mistake comes the greatest symbol of American power. A device so huge that it's actually a floating military base. In the next chapter, we'll take a look at the Gerald R. Ford-class aircraft carriers. A floating superweapon. If America has a symbol of pure military power, it's not a missile or a bomber. It's an aircraft carrier. A floating airfield carrying hundreds of fighter jets, helicopters, drones, missiles, and thousands of soldiers. The new Gerald R. Ford class represents the peak of this philosophy. Gerald R. Ford is the largest warship humanity has ever built. With nuclear propulsion, it can sail for years without refueling. It has a new electromagnetic catapult that replaces the old steam systems. It has more modern radars, a smaller crew, and a higher rate of aircraft launches and landings. On paper, it's the ideal successor to older aircraft carriers. Its mission is clear: to carry American power to any corner of the planet. And that's not all. An aircraft carrier never sails alone. There's an entire strike group around it. Cruisers, destroyers, submarines, supply ships, all together they form a floating combat bubble that can provide its own air defense, missile protection, and anti-submarine defense. If such a group appears off your coast, it means one thing. The United States of America has reserved the right to decide what will happen in that region. But it's important to mention the other side too. Gerald R. Ford is very expensive and has many problems. The first unit had years of technical issues. The electromagnetic catapult, aircraft arresting system, and ammunition elevators all faced major delays and frequent malfunctions. The ship cost more than it was supposed to, was delivered later than planned, and for a long time was not fully operational in active service. Critics called it a floating experiment, not a finished combat platform. However, that doesn't mean it's useless. The Navy is gradually fixing the problems. Systems that didn't work are being fine-tuned and modernized. Gerald R. Ford is the first of a new class, always the most expensive and the most problematic one. Other ships of this class should be cheaper, completed faster, and have fewer malfunctions. For America, this is a long-term investment in the future, not a toy for just a few years. Does this philosophy have a future? That's a legitimate question. Because today such a huge vessel faces increasingly faster anti-ship missiles, precision ballistic missiles, intelligent drones, and long-range underwater torpedoes. Critics argue that in such an environment, an aircraft carrier is too big and too expensive a target. Supporters respond that if you have good defense, a sensor network, and long-range fighter jets, it's still the most flexible tool of power. The truth is somewhere in between. Aircraft carriers aren't invincible, but nothing else can fully replace them for long-term air control over distant regions. Gerald R. Ford is therefore a double symbol. On one hand, it shows the astronomical resources that America has to build a ship for more than $10 billion and then spend years fixing its flaws. It also reveals their weakness. They have those projects that are hard to adapt when the world changes faster than the budget and industry can keep up. But America doesn't rely only on big, visible symbols of power. Alongside aircraft carriers and bombers, it also builds weapons that the average person will never see. Weapons that spend months in space and no one knows exactly what they're doing. And that's exactly where the next chapter will take us. To the mysterious Spaceplane X-37, the mysterious guardian of the sky. In military technology, the Pentagon often discusses certain weapons like bombers and fighter jets, submarines. There's also a system they rarely mention. That's the X-37B, a small unmanned spaceplane that can stay hidden for months, even years. That's why it's one of the most interesting weapons of the United States. The X-37B launches on a rocket just like a satellite. When it's in orbit, it unfolds its wings and operates like a miniature space shuttle. It can change altitude, move between orbits, and carry out missions the military still refuses to talk about. And that's not all. It can also land back on Earth like an airplane, get repaired, get reloaded, and take off again. What exactly is it doing up there? That's its core power. Only a small group knows. There are two main hypotheses. The first one, testing new sensors, electronics, and technologies that can't be tested on Earth. Second, reconnaissance and monitoring of enemy satellites. It's like a silent hunter that can fly around another country's satellite, examine it up close, take pictures, analyze it, or even jam it. For the United States, it's a tool that can respond quickly and flexibly, unlike traditional satellites that simply follow their set orbit after launch. But even here, we need to be realistic. X-37B is not a weapon that carries missiles or bombs. It's more of a platform. A tool that allows the United States to see what others are doing in space, while also testing technologies that will become part of a broader space infrastructure in a few years. That's why some experts see it as part of the race for dominance in space, where the competition concerns future bases, communication networks, and defense systems. X-37. B's main strength is its unpredictability. Russia and China both know that up there is an aircraft that can monitor their satellites, examine their infrastructure, or test something completely new, but they don't know exactly what. And this uncertainty changes behavior. That's exactly the point. Military power isn't just about what you can destroy, but also about what you can force the other side to do. That's why the X-37B complements traditional American superweapons in a way that's not as visible, but can be just as important. And that's just part of a bigger story. Because the United States hasn't depended on a single reconnaissance drone in space. They're creating a network of sensors, espionage tools, satellites, and stealth platforms to uncover what others want concealed. And that's exactly where we're heading next. In the last major chapter, we'll look at weapons that aren't as spectacular as a bomber or as massive as an aircraft carrier. They are the basis of today's American power. RQ-180 spy systems, cyber warfare, and a satellite eye over the planet. An invisible network of power. America's most powerful weapons aren't shown in videos. They're not bombers or aircraft carriers. They're systems without roaring engines, explosions, or parade displays. These weapons don't use explosives. They use information instead. And it's exactly this information that decides who will be blind and who will see everything in modern warfare. The most secret of them is the RQ-180. There are almost no official photos of this drone phantom. Experts assume that it's a huge stealth reconnaissance drone with a wingspan like a passenger airplane. It can fly thousands of kilometers at high altitudes and gather data over territories where manned aircraft wouldn't dare to go. And that's not all. The RQ-180 is not a standalone weapon. It's part of a network of satellites that track troop movements, ships, missile launches, radar pulses, even electromagnetic interference. A network of ground centers that process this data in real time. A network of airborne warning and control system planes that can see hundreds of kilometers away. Every sensor, every radar, every reconnaissance machine is just a node in a huge system. And this system is exactly what Russia and China don't have. Not with such quality, not on such a scale. American power isn't solely from weapons. It comes from the fact that they can connect them. While other armies see just part of the battlefield, the United States of America sees the whole picture. This difference can be decided in minutes, in seconds, and that's exactly what modern warfare is about. But we also need to tell the other half of the truth. This invisible power has weaknesses. The United States of America is extremely dependent on satellites. If Russia or China manage to blind them with jamming, lasers, or anti-satellite missiles, American weapons would lose part of their eyes and ears. Even the most advanced systems are useless without data, which is why another element is needed. Cyberwarfare. The United States of America has top-notch cyber capabilities, but its technological infrastructure is also a target. Greater system interconnection increases potential failure points. That's why the American strategy is not just about offense, but also about surviving the first strike, quickly restoring communication and keeping the network running even in chaos. All of this. RQ-180 satellite systems, cyber operations, reconnaissance networks all form the invisible framework of American power. Without it, bombers would be blind, ships exposed, and missiles inaccurate. Modern warfare isn't just about who fires first. It's about who knows exactly where and when to fire. This is where the image of American superweapons comes together. We've seen machines that amaze, but also technologies that struggle. We've seen major successes and billion-dollar failures. To complete the picture, the video still needs a final perspective. Are these weapons a real advantage? Or is America losing the position it held for decades? Conclusion: real power or a myth? Where America dominates and where it is losing ground. When we look back at all the American superweapons, we see a picture that is much more complex than propaganda videos or fan debates. The United States has machines and systems that are technologically at the absolute top. B-21 Ohio-class submarines, F-35 Ford-class carriers, and the X-37B are unmatched instruments of power that no other country possesses together or at this scale. But at the same time, there is another side. Projects that are delayed for years, hypersonics, where America is not the leader, megalomaniac ships that struggle with technical problems, systems where a single software bug costs hundreds of millions. Increasing reliance on satellites and networks is both an advantage and a weakness. America has tremendous power, but also a tremendous problem if that power starts to crack under its own weight. And that's not all. Modern warfare isn't just about having the biggest missile or ship. It's about who can better connect a sensor to a drone with an airplane with a satellite, and everything together with the command center. It's about who sees the field first, who can react faster, who has the most up-to-date data. And it's in this invisible layer that America still dominates the most. So what is the real superweapon of the United States of America? It's not one specific machine, not an aircraft carrier or a bomber. The true superweapon is merging all these systems into one, into a network, which can function even in chaos, after the first strike, and in a confusing conflict. That's why Russia and China have to think very carefully about how far they want to go. And now a question for you. Will this power ensure America's dominance in 20 years? Or is an era coming where big expensive projects won't stand a chance against cheap swarms of drones, hypersonic missiles, and cyber attacks? The answer isn't simple, but one thing is clear. The future war will no longer resemble any that we know. That's why it's important to understand these weapons now, while they're only a paper threat, not yet on the battlefield.
Superweapons of the great powers. War-deciding technologies. If you like the video, I'd appreciate a like and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next ones I'm working on. Support my work with gratitude. To help the video reach more people, click praise. Thank you.